there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to 31 Days of Cutfiles, combining it today with Stretch the Sketch. The sketch today is from Allison Davis for Scrapbook Generation, and I'm going to stretch this to a double pager. I am also using the typewriter cut file that MK designed, and I love it. I think it's really cool. I've got um, 6 photos that I'm doing today. They are all photos of family journals. So the first 2 that you see there are from my great grandmother. And then in the next page, which is stacked underneath that page, there is a journal from my grandfather on my mom's side and my grandmother on my mom's side. And then there's a journal that my mom did. And then there's also a scrapbook that my grandmother and her best friend made of their travels um, back in, I'm gonna say like uh, the early, like maybe 1940-ish, um, somewhere around in there. Anyway, uh, I went through my branding strips. I pulled out a whole bunch of them and I cut them down to be about 5 inches. I wasn't really sure how big they should be. I know they're not going to be 6 inches because in the sketch they definitely are not wide enough or tall enough to be half the page. And I felt like 4 inches was maybe too small. So I went with 5. I figured I could always cut it down by another inch if I needed to, but I would start with 5 and kind of go from there. So I didn't end up changing anything. So they are 5 inches, but that was my thought process. So I thought I'd share that with you. And then I just kind of laid them out in a wavy design to see if they fit across okay, and if I needed to add anything anywhere, or if I picked enough of them or needed to cut more. Turns out I cut more than I needed because I got 2 out of each one. And then I just used my little vortex mixer there that you kind of just set the bottle on top and push down and it mixes everything, because I'm using my Dilutions Black Marble Shimmer Spray to ink up the typewriter. I didn't want it to be a flat black because I'm going to back it with a flat black paper. So I wanted it to have a bit of a metallic sheen because, typewriters back then, they had silver or whatever color on them, whatever metal was holding it all together, right? Um, and that is what I was kind of going for. So I'm going to back it with a plain black. And then you can see the paper to the right hand side with all of the typewriter keys on it. I'm going to actually use that to back the keyboard for the typewriter. And I'm just using a 5/8 inch punch to punch all of those letters out. And I'm actually putting them where they belong on the keyboard for the most part. I think the ones to the side, like the return key and the shift key, might not be exactly how it looks on a typewriter, but I didn't have, all of the options available because I just have this one strip of paper. In fact, I don't think I had a letter H, so I just used a black circle, uh, one that didn't really have a letter on it, so to in the place of the H, it all works. It's all fine. I did have to trim these down a little bit because they are a little bit taller than the actual openings for the keyboard, since the keyboard is actually more of an oval versus where the keys on the keyboard are oval versus circular. But that's okay. It gave me a starting place, and um, it all works out fine. I do not make you sit through all of the backing of that because it was a time-consuming process. And then once I got that down, I decided to put a few strips of ATG tape down so that I could start laying down all of my pieces of branding strips. And my idea here was I put, I think, 3 or 4 swipes of the ATG, and then that allows me to put them down, and then I could go back and add more glue later if I needed to, or it would also allow me to pick them up and move them around a little bit if I wasn't happy with the placement. It gives me a lot of flexibility. Rather than putting uh, glue on every single strip, this is a much faster process, and then I could easily just take my liquid glue and run a bead of it along the edge, underneath the top and the bottom. And that works out great for me, but it turns out I didn't actually even need to do a whole bunch of glue because I'm going to go back and I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to put a stitch over each end. Um, in the sketch, it looks like there's a stitch through the middle. I decided not to do it through the middle because I'm going to put my title there. I figured my title's going to cover a lot of that, and I wanted the stitching to still show and not be completely covered up. So I did it over each edge, and I think it works out just fine, and I'm really happy with the way that that turned out. I figured for the left-hand page, I don't need to do strips all the way across because the typewriter is going to cover up a large portion of that. So I'm just going to do a couple on each side, but I felt like they were too linear across because it's not giving you any height difference. So I went and adjusted those a little bit so it looks like they're kind of going more in a wave like the opposite pages. And then I am using my little trimmer here to trim down some photo mats. I'm going to mat everything with some black because the typewriter's in black. I figured I need to bring some black over to my opposing page. And then as you can see there, I cut a slit in the typewriter and I tucked the two photos in. I didn't want you to think that the photos are cut down and just sitting there. They are actually, I just used a self-healing mat and my craft knife and I cut along the edge of the cut file there into the black paper and tucked the photos in so that they don't cover up as much of the typewriter. Also, there's not a lot in those photos that you need to see other than the title of the books. Um, there's no like no other detail. It's just a notebook, and then it has the actual words on it that say whose family journal it was. And so I decided it wasn't a big deal to cover up a portion of the photo. And then I'm just trying to figure out the placement of everything. I do use quite a few rub-ons in this one. I am using some of the rub-ons from the 49 and Market Spectrum Sherbert collection, and I'm using the Cool Colors, which I believe was called Tidal Wave. And I have a lot of these left over from that collection. I had multiples of everything in that collection, so still have um, quite a bit of embellishments. I don't have much paper left, but I have rub-ons and embellishments still, so you'll see those used here and there while I'm scrapbooking, because I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to use it. They're very versatile, so they go with a lot of different things because they're not really theme specific. So that's one of the things I do love about the 49 and Market embellishments. They're not usually very theme specific. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and glue everything down. You can see that I did the stitching across my strips. I also did a stitching around the outside of the entire layout. So the three sides, the middle didn't get any stitching because I want it to look like it's one page or one double page, even though it's going in a D-ring album. So there is going to be a split down the middle. That's okay. I still want it to look like it's, continuous or contiguous across the page. And so happy with how that came out. I just used black thread and I used some washi tape on the back side to hold all the thread in place. And now I'm just adding rub-ons here and there. I'm not doing a ton of the little word rub-ons, but I am doing some because I don't want it to be a perfectly white paper. And then I'm going to do some layers in those areas as well, some layers of embellishments. And while I go ahead and put these down, I'm going to remind you there are a bunch of people playing along with Stretch the Sketch. The link to the playlist is down below, so you can go and check out everyone who is playing along and give them a little bit of love. They will be using the same sketch, although they may be shrinking it, or maybe they're doing a page and a half. I have no idea. The idea is you cannot do a 12 by 12 if it's a 12 by 12 sketch. You got to do it in some other size. Even a card works. So if you have, if you are interested in playing along with Stretch to Sketch, we don't really have people playing along unless they are sharing on social media for inspiration purposes like YouTube or Instagram. That is something you can always let me know, and I will add you to the group where all of the inspiration is shared. Okay, so now I've added these red ones, and I kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't have done that because now it looks like the strips on the typewriter page are really tall. But once it's all said and done, it's going to look fine because I am layering up embellishments, as I mentioned. So it's not going to look like there's just some random strips sticking out from the sides or the top and the bottom of the typewriter. But it is allowing me to bring in more of that red color, which I like because I've got that red journal that's on the right-hand side. That's actually my mom's childhood stories that she gifted to each of the family members maybe 2 years ago. I'm not sure, maybe 2 years ago. Maybe it was last year. No, I think it was 2 years ago. Anyway, that's her childhood stories all typed up and bound in a book. So um, I definitely wanted to have that in here. And I have these are all copies that are in my possession. So apparently I am the family keeper of journals. And yeah, one of these days I'm actually going to read through them. I have not done that yet. I've read my mom's, but I have not read all of the other ones. The brown one at the top is the scrapbook of my grandma's travels. There are photographs in there of her when she's young and her best friend, which we always called her our aunt, even though she wasn't blood related. And then there's also postcards of places that they went. And I never really thought about the postcard idea. I mean, I've picked up postcards, but and included them here and there and in things more like as a journaling spot, like you could pull it out of a pocket and read the journaling or something. But my husband brought up a really good point. Way back then, it was actually a lot cheaper to just buy a postcard of the photo and know that it was going to come out rather than to necessarily take a photo of the place they were visiting and then run the risk of it not coming out because, back in the day, film was expensive and it was not a sure bet that your photo was ever going to come out the way you wanted it to. So that makes a lot of sense as to why there were so many postcards in this um, little scrapbook that they made. And there is writing in it on the postcards and stuff, not on the back, but on the edge of the postcard of maybe where they're at or what the date was or whatever. So I think it's really cool and I love that I have it and um, it's really fun. So fun to go back and see the different travels that my grandma was able to do back in the day because it was quite a lot for the time and being just two women traveling on their own uh, from state to state. So very cool. Okay, so I am almost done with this layout now, and I'm going to add some tiny word stickers. I think one says like tell your story. I don't even remember what all of the rest say off the top of my head. You'll probably see them in the close-ups though. So stick around for that. It'll be up in just a few moments here. Um, oh, maybe it's more than a few moments. Also, in my last couple videos, if I was very loud, I apologize. I have been voicing these while we are traveling, and I am not using my normal mic, and so I did not realize the volume was as loud as it has been, and hopefully this one is not as loud as the last couple. If it's been, um, I don't know if it's been an issue for anybody. Nobody's commented on it, but I just wanted to say I am sorry that if my video came on and it was blasting. So anyway, so here's a little technique. These rub-ons, I went ahead and rubbed them onto some acetate so that they are see-through, but I can layer them up. And I think it's a really fun technique because it gives you um, a lot of leeway and a lot of freedom in where to use them. They don't necessarily have to be on the background, even though they are a rub-on. You can use them as a floral layer rather than maybe, or if maybe you're out of the flowers that actually came with your collection, but you've got the rub-ons. This is a great way to make flowers that you can use in your clusters. And then I am going to just use my tiny attacher there, and I am attaching some of these acetate butterflies. They were rub-ons, and I'm again here rubbing them onto some acetate. and cutting them out. And then I am using a mouse pad behind my stapler, my tiny attacher. I've opened it up like you would if you were using a cork board or something like that and stapling just like a regular stapler, stapling into the mouse pad, and then I flip it over and I'm using my the rub-on tool to flatten out the staples in the back. And it works great. Um, Nothing is like super pokey or anything like that. And I like it because it holds these acetate butterflies down and you can kind of bend their wings up. So you don't have to put any adhesive behind the wings. They kind of stay bent up once you bend the acetate. And I don't know, it gives a little dimension and a fun look to the layout. As you can see, I also added my title, our family history, and those were just stickers that I had in my stash. I'm not even sure uh, what they're called. I didn't even look at the name of them, so I apologize for that. Also, I'm not going to probably have a whole lot down in my description box other than the stuff for Stretch the Sketch and my regular stuff because there's not a lot of product on here that I use that is still readily available. So that is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you're inspired to use the typewriter cut file if you are someone who has purchased the cut files. And if you aren't, the links are down below. If you're interested in that, you can easily get those on MK's shop, either digitally or pre-cut. And that is it. If you enjoyed this one, hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate it. Oh, look, there's some husky glitter in my photo. Yeah, you never know what you're going to find. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day and come back and see me tomorrow. And don't forget to check out everyone else who is playing along with Stretch a Sketch. The link is down below for that as well. Take care and have a great day. Bye bye.